everyone. This is Rachel here, the Modern Shaman. Thank you guys for being with me for another YouTube Q&A video of the week. If you are new to my channel, I always recommend you check out my website. That is at themodernshaman.net. There are a lot of resources there. If you would like to have a session here with me in San Antonio, Texas, in my office, or of course, nowadays you can do all sessions online. That's also available on the website through my online calendar and booking. And then if you're interested in taking my masterclass teaching curriculum for psychic development and shamanic awareness, all of those courses are available now online, and I'd love to have you sit with me, work with me, and be guided into your own powerful gifts to be able to utilize them yourself so that you don't have to reach outside of your own awareness in order to communicate and garner insight from spirit. Okay, I will get on to the question of the week. Let's see. This question came in. Hi, Rachel. I know it may sound silly. I've been watching you for a while and really wanted to know about losing weight, but was embarrassed to ask. Can I just say, would you ask the angels, or what would you say they would say about what the best way is to lose weight? I know that it's different for every person, but I'm speaking more as a species. How should we have the optimum body? That's a new one. I mean, people ask, it's pretty common to ask health questions, and if you're struggling with the issue of weight or health, it comes up, but I don't think I've ever had it like as a topic for a video or for humans as a species. So yeah, I like that you said, would you ask the angels? We'll tune in a little bit about that. Let me see. Let me just center myself. You know what's funny? Y'all, I never know what spirit is going to show me. So I close my eyes, I set my intention to hear from a higher guidance on this topic, on this question, an insight that you were seeking. And I laughed because the vision that they showed me was of animals. And asking it from the perspective of a species, they put us as a species. So in my vision right now, that my first clairvoyant image was of a animal that's in like a petting zoo, where they're in a kind of small confined space, so they don't get out a lot. They're not roaming the pasture. It was a sheep. It was a big, fat, overweight sheep, right? But most of it was because of the spatial living in which it was resided, where it resided. It had just a small space that it could live in, and so it was confined to that small area, and it had people feeding it all the time. Oh my goodness. So essentially, as a species, in a very simple way, which interesting is that when we look at this from spirit's perspective, there's no cultural judgment. There's no sense of judgment whatsoever. It is totally looking at a species and comparing us to other species. Why do these species become overweight or have an issue with weight? Because they're in a small confined space, so they're not out and moving a lot, and then they're feeding themselves constantly. Even if they're not hungry, it's a petting zoo, and so they're getting fed with a sense of regularity, or sometimes from people like wanting to come and interact with them. So they're not even really hungry, but it's available, right? This is so basic. It really is. And it comes down to our sense of self-discipline. When we have food constantly available to us, we have the option not to roam, not to move, but to stay in the confines of our own home. We have to make ourselves as a species get out and roam around. If you do that with regularity, you look at the animal that I was just seeing in that clairvoyant vision of a sheep. I'm laughing now because they're showing me like a baboon. Also, it just takes out all the cultural perspective. And there's no idea of like, oh, this is beautiful and this is the body shape you have to have. It's not like we look at a sheep, you know, or a baboon and we're like, oh, they have to have this body type. They have to have this hourglass shape. No, it's a species on this planet, and it's going to have variety with the bone density and shape and all of that. But as a species, the way that it stays in its optimum body would be movement and diet. So I would say to look at both of those things, movement and diet, movement and diet. As a species, we sit too much. We're very stagnant. So a lot of the times we feel like we have to exercise. It's not even exercise. It's just movement and not feeling so confined, not sitting. If you have a job where you sit at a desk for 8 hours a day, you're going to need to make sure that you move more on the time that you're not sitting behind the desk. It depends on your work and lifestyle habits. You have to kind of find that balance of movement to where as a species, we're moving more. We're getting more engaged where we are. So sometimes that may be getting like one of those treadmill desks or standing desks or things where you can kind of keep yourself moving. And I'm not talking about pounding the pavement or like really having a brutal workout. I'm just talking about flow and movement to where it feels like it equals the amount of time that you are stagnant, right? Try to equalize those to where there's an equal amount of resting and moving, to where it's not predominantly resting or at a resting position during the day and then not getting enough movement, or only moving from position to position, right? Only going from a car and then you sit down and then you move into an office and then you sit down. And the only movement is from your desk, walking out to the car, walking into your house, sitting down, eating, or sitting on the bed, or going to sleep. Give yourself time in between where you have to walk to a place. I mean, y'all, it's pretty simple. It's not, I don't feel like they gave something that was like crazy. I'm looking at your question. Let me just tune into that vision again with the sheep. The interesting thing with the sheep and the baboon too, I have this awareness when they're showing me this imagery that there's no neurosis around it. They have no concept of their body image, right? They're not judging themselves as overweight. It's like just a product of like what they're doing around them and what's in their life. If they are in a confined space, if they're getting flow and movement in their bodies, and if they're essentially overeating or overindulging or eating what's given to them even when they're not hungry, right? And the brain feels like there's no judgment when it comes to a species, again, and no sense of what's beautiful and what's not, because everyone's different shapes and sizes. It's more so about the utility of a human form in the body. I also feel like as a species, this optimum sense of being able to live out an optimum life, live out a life that's not painful in the physical body. Obviously, there are exceptions where there may be some disease or something wrong with a particular organ in the body where it's producing something that is causing side effects of weight. But I'm talking about the general dynamic human species body. Okay, let me just see if there's anything else. Don't overthink it. It is not a process of the mind so much as it is a habit of the body. This is what I hear. So when we get in our head about it, we count calories, we're exact, we kind of like do this sense of like very logistical process, but it needs to be more intuitive and ingrained with the processes of the body. and what I hear from spirit about processes of the body. Y'all, you're gonna laugh at the imagery. They always just show, like, they get the point across in the quickest, fastest, most efficient way. And they're showing me basically imagery of like our bowel movements, like eating and pooping and this whole process. It's a body process, and it should be viewed like a body process. When we get it, like if we are literally like looking in the, I'm sorry, but this is what they're showing me. If we are literally like looking in the toilet, if we are like counting the amount of like corn and nuts and all these little things in our poop, if we are getting super granular about every little detail, it becomes a neurosis. We become obsessed. It makes the process itself more difficult in essence, when it should be a very simple process. Simply the process of eating when you're hungry and movement. Keeping equalized movement to the amount that you are stagnant. If you're sitting around a lot, then you need to move in equal amounts. That's it. Keep it simple, because the more complicated you make it, when processes are difficult, we don't do them. It is a simple human function. And the efficiency in which your body can function like this is impeccable. You are absolutely divine. So remember that functionality of it is just perfection. And we get amazing things to eat on top of it. I mean, the pleasure derived from our sensory perception, the smells, the tastes, all of that that's included in what we get to eat. It's a wonderful gift as a species. But the functionality of like being overweight or losing weight, that is a very functional aspect of the body. Let it remain functional. I hope that was helpful to you guys. Spirit's perspective always cracks me up. They just say it like it is. They have no sense of like cultural taboo around anything. So I think more than anything, move yourself into that position of looking at your body without judgment. Again, baboons don't look at one another, or sheep don't look at one another and say, oh, that one has smaller legs or that one has fluffier skin. They're in no sense of judgment. So with that, it's very easily understood from Spirit's perspective. Don't have judgment on it. Don't have judgment on what you should look like in this idea of beauty and perfection. It's the utility to be able to live out the utmost in a human form, right? You don't have to be perfect or like some bodybuilder. Instead, you have a sense of balance to the movement and the stagnant aspects of your form. If you sit a lot, you need to move a lot, right? In balance. And you eat when you're hungry, when your body says I'm hungry. That's different than a craving or like, oh yeah, that smells good, so I'll eat it. It's a function of the form, right? To sustain you and to learn the difference. Pay attention to that. Slow down and pay attention. Not just like habit of like, do I need 3 meals a day? Notice what your body seems to ask for. Yeah. That's my advice from Spirit's perspective. I hope that blesses you. Bye, you guys. We'll be back next week with another video.